everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6 and compare it against the Samsung Galaxy Fold 4 and see which particular Samsung phone is the better one for you. Now, I will tell you between both these particular phones, there's a lot of cool stuff going on between them, and the capability is basically the same, but the Galaxy Fold 6 is a substantially better phone than the Fold 4. We'll talk about that throughout this whole entire video, but if you want to pick up some phones that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there, and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4, it did come out a little bit of time ago, so it came out back in 2022. And when this phone first came out, it was a big difference, not the big difference, but it was a little bit of a difference coming from its predecessor. These phones, as most of you know, have two different types of displays. So it has that front display, then it has that basically that unfolded display when you unfold it. And on the front, you were getting a 6.2-inch cover display, dynamic AMOLED 120Hz. Unfolded was 7.6 inches. With the Galaxy Fold 6, that front display is 6.3 inches. So it's 0.1 inches bigger on that front display, which I think is nice, but the unfolded display, when it's unfolded, is basically the same size display for the most part. They're both giving you 120Hz displays too, which is very, very nice, and having that type of capability of having that type of display is very cool, and I would say for me personally, it's a very, very nice thing going on for this particular phone. But the first thing you want to keep in mind here for the most part is that the brightness on both these phones are very, very different. So the Galaxy Fold 6 gets, basically has a substantially brighter panel on the front of it, when it is unfolded, than the Galaxy, Fold 4. So this in and of itself is a very, very big thing to keep in mind here. Because if you're going to go through and pick up a phone, it probably would make a lot more sense to go and buy a phone that's going to be giving you that better type of display. And that is a much better display inside of the Fold 6 over the Fold 4, mostly just because of that brightness. So that right there, just kind of keep that in mind. Now on top of that, when you're talking about the rest of the bodies, very similar type of structure. You're getting USB Type-C ports on the bottom, so that's not even really like that big of a difference there either. You're basically getting a frosted glass back kind of on both these phones, and overall, there's a lot of similarity here, there's a lot of overlap. But that folding architecture is something that's very, very interesting for a lot of people, and I just don't know how much people want to go ahead and use that folding phone, and if they really know what they're getting into when they're buying a phone like this. Because when you're getting a phone, when you're buying like a Samsung Galaxy S24, or you're buying a Google Pixel 8 or whatever, these phones are just slabs, and they're just going to be in your hand. You don't have to worry about folding them all the time. Because these phones do fold, you are going to have a much different experience. And when it's folded, it's a little bit easier to use, but when it's unfolded, it might be a little bit harder for some people. So just keep that in mind. Again, not the biggest deal in the world, but just one of those small things to keep in mind there. Now you are also getting a difference in IP certification as well. So the Galaxy Fold 4 had that IPX certification. Now we are actually getting a number associated with that IP certification, which is IP48, dust and water resistant. But the thing to keep in mind here is that for the most part, it's kind of the same type of water resistance of 1.5 meters for up to 30 minutes. So just another small thing to keep in mind here. On top of all those things, in terms of the price tags, the Galaxy Fold 4 is about half the price right now than the Fold 6. So if you're going to go in the used market, you're going to be able to see that the Galaxy Fold 6 is substantially more expensive than the Galaxy Fold 4 is right now. And if you're trying to go through and buy a phone, well, you're going to see that the Galaxy Fold 4 is, in the used market, it's going to be a much cheaper phone to buy than the Galaxy Fold 6. So this in and of itself, once again, is another very big thing to keep in mind here too, because if you're going to go through and buy a phone, it probably does make more sense to go and buy something like the Galaxy Fold 4, than the Fold 6, because it is just so much more cheaper to go down that direction. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there as well. Now on top of all those things, another very big thing to keep in mind here too, is the fact that both these phones as of this point are still, giving you really decent cameras inside of them. So the cameras are probably more similar than not here for the most part, which is a very big thing to keep in mind. So if you're going to go through and pick up a phone, I will definitely tell you, in my personal opinion, both phones are very, very good cameras, and there's not really structurally they're about the same thing. The big thing though to keep in mind here is that they're both on the back giving you 8K capability, which is nice. And on the front, that you're either getting that 10 megapixel cover display camera or 4 megapixel, wide angle camera, depending on which way you want to go. But you can do 4K at 30 on the front and 4K at 60 on the front and the back, which is a very nice thing. But as I've said before, for how expensive these phones are, you're almost, like I said before, like I do feel like you can kind of get a better, camera instead of the Ultra phones that are cheaper than the Fold phones. So again, it just depends on which way you want to go. But I kind of do feel like if you're going to go through and pick up a phone, it just makes a lot more sense to go and buy a phone like a Galaxy S24 Ultra or S23 Ultra, even an S22 Ultra than these phones, because I feel like those cameras are going to be better. But I will still say these cameras are still very good. And the Galaxy the Galaxy Z Fold 4 camera is still very, very nice as well. But it just so happens that if you're going to want the better one, I think it's clearly, the Ultras are the better way to go here. So from that side, that kind of covers it up here as well. In terms of software, this is another very big thing to kind of keep in mind here as well. If you're going to go through and pick up a phone, the Samsung Galaxy, Z Fold 4 is one of those phones that is about 2 years older than the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. So if we're talking about which particular phone you want to go ahead and buy, like I said before, this is going to be one of those tricky situations where if you're going to go through and buy an older phone, you're not only going to be getting a 2-year-old phone with a chance of having 2 less versions of software, but also because Samsung has just made massive improvements, and when it comes down to the whole entire software improvements of their phones, there's an even higher likelihood those particular phones aren't even going to last as long as, the newer phones are going to last much longer than the, older phones. So that's just another big thing to keep in mind here too. And if I'm going to go and pick up a device, like I said before, it probably makes a lot more sense to go and buy a device that is still going to be supported with software. And with these devices, I will tell you, you're kind of stuck in a situation where it just doesn't make a lot of sense to go and buy these devices anymore. Well, it makes sense to buy. It makes more sense to go and buy a phone like a Galaxy Fold 6 because that one's going to last for a substantially long amount of time. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there as well. In terms of the performance, you're basically getting a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chipset inside of the Fold 4 with 12 gigabytes of RAM, where the Fold 6 is giving you that, Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chipset inside with 12 gigs of RAM. And I will tell you the difference between the, Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 or even a variation of the 8 Gen 1 and the 8 Gen 3, there's substantial differences here for sure. You're definitely going to be getting, without a doubt, very big differences, and that's kind of what's going to end up happening when you're getting these types of devices. I do feel like in a lot of ways that if you're going to go ahead and buy a device, the Samsung Galaxy Fold 6 is a much more well-rounded phone than the Fold 4, but it has to be because it is a newer phone. That's just one thing you're going to have to keep in mind here. With something like the Samsung Galaxy Fold 4, I feel like this phone for the most part is still fairly good. It's definitely not a terrible device. And I do like this phone a lot because of that. You're getting a phone like this and it's still very, very good. But like I said, you're probably better off buying a phone like the Fold 6 because it is going to be that much better of a phone. So to kind of sum up this video, what I'll definitely tell you, I like both of these phones, right? I think both these phones are very, very good. They have a lot of capability, a lot of quality. And if I'm going to go and pick up a device, I definitely do think these are very good phones. But I feel like the Fold 4 is a better value per dollar. If I'm going to go ahead and buy a device, it probably makes more sense to go and buy a phone like the Fold 4, just because it is a substantially cheaper phone than the Fold 6. But I feel like the Fold 6 is still very good. You're still good, still getting a lot of capability and a lot of quality from that phone. But I think the Fold 4 is a better deal. But the Fold 6 is a substantially better phone. So that pretty much covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.